closely. I know lately you're a bit lonely. Did you know on your phone there's a whole world full of girls you could be looking at, homie? It's true, between me and you, it's only $5 and watch what they do. Let's get high, lose track of time. Come on, man, you know I'm a damn good time. Yo, if they're gonna post it, no clothing. Oh my god, so exposed and everything. You might as well see everything. Every inch, never leave, or grow a need. Wait, maybe you should DM, be friends, pretend, the boyfriend, the deep end. She needs men, she needs you and your twos. Get out of my head, get out of my mind. I need to focus, I'm wasting my time. You make me feel hopeless, I'm wasting my prime. Fuck it, I'm going to war with my mind. I'm in control, my body and soul. Never again will you ever take hold. I've got a purpose outside of this hole, and I'll turn this feeling into something more. I could change, rearrange my brain. Thoughts and energy push through pain. Loneliness is a passing phase. A better life, it starts today. Once hopeless and broken, now I'm in motion. Just gotta stay focused. Keep moving, keep growing. Never look back, got a new path chosen.
When we are weak, when we are broken, often we're left open in darkness. It's all of our flaws that keep us hopeless. Numb our minds and choke us. We're all in control of our taking off. I'm crying out this hole. My mind and my soul. Rewind control.
How's everybody doing? All right, so we're going to be talking about impulse control problems. We're going to relate it back to my story. All right, don't get me wrong. We'll be doing the divorce talk for a while, but eventually we'll talk about other stuff too. How's everyone doing tonight? So this is my first day since leaving my old job. My first night, I should say. My first night, this is my fifth night being sober. It should be my 12th night, actually my 15th night being sober, but I had a little bit of drinking with a friend of mine, a female friend. I don't currently have anyone in my life. My ex is completely distanced herself from me, and the girl who I am in love with, I don't know. She says goodbye a lot, so I don't know which goodbye is the goodbye. In my mind, though, you should know this. I'm a loyal person. I'm monogamous. I don't cheat. So until I hear we're done, I will be loyal. But let's talk about when you don't have that impulse control. So I talked about my relapse, so I didn't really talk about... Oh, let me move. I didn't realize that was open. Hold on. I did not realize that was open. Okay. All right. So what does loss of impulse control mean? Does it mean you're just going to act on every single impulse? No, you still have like reason. But it means that your frontal cortex has shut down. Either you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting enough sleep, or you're just completely anxious, right? So the way that worked for me is I couldn't stop myself from drinking. I couldn't stop myself from spending. There was a little bit of theft in my accounts. And there was a little bit of leakage in my accounts. And there's a little bit of access that shouldn't have been. But when I added all that up together, it didn't add up to the expenditures that I lost. See, I was eating out a lot. I was eating with my friends a lot. And doing that, roughly in about 3 months, I spent about $20,000 on food alone. Now, mind you, this is not like throwing money away. This is food for me. It's broken down by multiple aspects, the AI, an outside influence that I let in the house, and desire. I just wasn't there. And then plus gaslighting that was happening where I was at a certain place. And it just, my impulse control just dropped because I was too distracted by everything else. Now, here's what's interesting. Didn't violate my morals. There was like 1 or 2 times where I came really close and then I pushed the person away. I was like, no. It's not what I do. I'm a loyal person. I don't cheat, don't do nothing. So I was loyal to the person I was with, but I put myself in positions to be tempted, which was a mistake. Luckily, nothing happened. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that it was good for me to be in those positions. And the impulse control still wasn't great. It wasn't there. There was the fact that I was drinking too much, spending too much, going out too much, running to a certain person too often whenever they needed something. And it shouldn't be bad, right? It shouldn't be a problem. But it is a problem when you're not really paying attention to your expenditures, when you're not checking what the consequences are, because you're thinking like a teenager, because your frontal cortex is down. So you're thinking like someone who's under 25, which might be fine if under 25 you were a responsible person. But if you were at all self-destructive, at all negative, if at all impulse heavy, and now suddenly you have discernible and disposable income, oof, boy, can you get yourself in trouble. And there are plenty of adults who don't have great impulse control for different reasons: drug addiction, abuse, conditioning, coercion. And there's people who go through identity shifts. There's people who go through, some people would call it split personality, but it's not really split personality. It's like personas having to do with different role shifting or identity shifting. And that role shifting stuff is serious. And it comes from, either childhood trauma or it could be sexual trauma. It could be any kind of trauma, but it controls who you are, and it lowers your inhibitions because maybe you're disassociating, maybe you're dysregulated, maybe you're under pressure from someone else, maybe you're being exploited by someone. But it doesn't matter. Whatever the secondary cause is, that original root cause is still inside you. So the way to get around this is to actually deal with all of your stuff. And this is what's called shadow work, right? It's pop psychology, but it's not just pop psychology. You're looking at yourself and you're saying, okay, what do I need to do to be whole again? And depending on how far back you regress, you got a lot of stuff to deal with. So for instance, for me, a lot of it had to do with my mom's death. My mom died when I was 6. So I had a lot of abandonment issues, which was, increasing my anxiety. There was issues of when my ego was really big and then someone had cut me down. That was a process of getting around that, of realizing that what they were saying didn't have anything to do with me. But man, did it hurt at that time. And in realizing that their perspective was wrong, because it's that kind of person that wasn't into me, not people weren't into me. And so stuff like that, like you start going through these things and you think you go straight from the beginning forward. No. So you go to whatever your latest trauma is, that's your core thing. And that's what you deal with. So you start concentrating on that. But because you're spending so much mental power on repairing these traumas or addressing these traumas, you can either suppress it, which is fine. That's what I did for years. I suppressed and functioned. And I was just a rolling locomotive, just going forward, and making my life really great. But when my goals collapsed, that didn't work for me anymore. And suddenly all these repressed desires and impulses came up. So suppression and repression doesn't always work. And so the problem is that if you're already in a state of drinking too much, of not drinking enough water, drinking too much alcohol, if you're at all a party person, if you're doing gummies or you're doing anything else, if you're someone who's an addict that does like drugs, you're lowering your inhibitions. So if you have impulse control problems because of a tragedy or some kind of trauma you're dealing with, or a personal low point, now you're just adding fuel to the fire by drinking too much, by going through your cycles. And all this is really bad for you. It's not okay. It's not acceptable behavior. But because we live in societies where, like, if you're a club person or you're a party person, this is just expected behavior. Well, no one's slowing you down. So the brakes are just off. And as someone who recently got divorced, that's what happened. It's really hard to speak about, but I've really only been with one person since I left my wife. And this one person was very important to me, is still very important to me. I'm probably going to love them for the rest of my life, but I don't know if they're going to be in my life for the rest of my life. I'm going to be in their life They're interested. I'm interested, right? But they might not be interested. And when that bad behavior happened, it happened at inopportune times. So your impulse control problems make it to where even if you want a stable relationship or a good, you want to be committed, your behavior will read as if you're not being committed. So even if everything you're doing is monogamous and straightforward and honest, you're going to come off as if you're being erratic. And then consequences from those bad decisions are going to come up. So for me, it meant that I spent too much. It meant that I wasn't paying as much attention to what was going on around me. So as my work circumstances changed, as people left where I was working and new people came in, I wasn't watching that my status had changed and that I needed to, it was time for me to move on, but I didn't know. I didn't know because I wasn't paying attention. And I was paying attention because I was distracted and I wanted to stick around. And my impulse was to stay with this particular person and not worry about the consequences. Except as a rational adult, as someone who has a fully formed frontal cortex, you know better. And as my stuff started coming back online, as my personality came back online, and as my superstructures came back online, it all started making so much sense. And I started making rash decisions. I started applying for new jobs. I started making choices about, hey, do I have enough money to continue this particular venue, or should I try something different? Do I need to reach out to friends? Do I need to check what I'm doing and not use the internet, not use ChatGPT, but like actual people? And so that's what I started doing. I started regulating, self-regulating. And once that happens, then your internal monologue turns back on, and you stop looping, you stop spiraling, and you start taking control and responsibility for stuff. But that means that the person who you're with went from your core personality, who you were before, then they went through this like weird thing, and now you're back. So to them, it just reads like, oh, you're completely inconsistent. Not as in you're transitioning through. So that's super important. Okay, so all that to say, I don't know why let me see here. Is this thing on? Are you guys watching? Let me see if you guys are able to see me. We should be on. Yeah, we're fine. Okay, so why does the impulse control disappear? It's very simple. Once your goals disappear, you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. And once you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, your motivation disappears. And so you'll see a lot of men go through divorce, and some women as well, where right after the divorce, it seems like they don't care about anything. And it's not that they don't care. It's not that they're being self-destructive. It's just the frontal cortex has shut down. You're trying to rebuild your personality and rebuild everything about your life, your goal structure, what you want, who you are, how you identify. But you can't identify as a husband anymore. You can't identify, if you have kids, maybe you can't identify as a dad anymore. Maybe you can't identify as a certain role anymore, because maybe a certain role or a certain thing you took on, a certain responsibility, was only tied to that other person or to that other person's goals. So suddenly you don't have that anymore. So that's really difficult. But it's not impossible. It's not as if you go through this and suddenly life is terrible. That's not what's happening. But things get tough. Things get difficult. And when they do, if you're not in the right mindset, it can get to you. You can mess up things that are not normally mess upable by you. And that's what I did. I lost certain relationships and hurt certain relationships and hurt certain opinions of me by simply reverting back to a version of myself that that was no longer viable in my current life. So now that I'm acting more like myself, yeah, it's great. Okay, I'm taking care of my dad properly. I'm taking care of my house properly. I'm apologizing to certain people who were offended, certain neighbors who were like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, that's all great. but there's a chance I could lose one of the best relationships I've ever had in my entire life. And that really sucks. And yeah, it's not just my fault. Yeah, they have responsibility for their decisions. And yeah, there's other stuff going on and other pressures and all of that. But I left my job so I can have a new job, new opportunities. And also so I can heal and so I can process and so I can take care of my dad and get him stabilized. We got aid coming supposedly. We've been approved. We're just waiting for all of this stuff to come through. But in the meantime, I have to fix my finances because I got penalized. I didn't get my normal check. And by not getting my normal check, I can't cover my normal bills. And yeah, things will work out. I will eventually get another job. I will eventually get money coming in. I'll eventually be a top performer again. All of that's true. But right now, while I'm in it, I still have to make all those corrections. And that's not easy to do. So when you go from being completely disciplined and having great impulse control to having almost no impulse control outside of let's not self-destruct, to then rebuilding self-control, there's some changes. So I'd like to talk about that. So I used to identify a certain way. I used to identify as choosing monogamy. Well, now I'm just monogamous. I used to identify as choosing to be straight. Now I'm just straight. I'm just hetero. It's just completely. And I already had some of those changes happen a long time ago. But the way I identify now, I don't think of myself as the way I thought of myself before. And that's part of regaining your impulse control. Because those limitations exist. So certain things that were chosen but within my boundaries are now outside my boundaries and not part of my selection process. And I think that's really great. That's really good development of my mental health, of my emotional stability. Those are good things. But there comes other questions. What does that mean for other people? So I cut out a lot of people out of my life. I cut out someone who I've been friends with for over 30 years because who they had in their life was not stable. And I asked certain people to move on from where they were with me because I needed stability. And the one that I'm trying to hold on to, I don't know what's going to happen. I hope it lasts. I hope it holds. But they have pressures that they're under. And what happens when you're in this selfish mode and your impulse control is dysregulated? Oh man, it's so hard to understand the other person's perspective because you're acting instinctual. You're acting from survival mode. Being in a rational, conscious state is so much better. It's part of the reason why I'm so attracted to Stoicism. Yeah, Stoicism doesn't always work. You can't just be a cold-hearted jerk all the time. But there are times that pulling back and stepping back and watching and observing and making decisions based on rationality and actuality really do help. Yes, principles and maxims matter. Yes, that got me through a lot of stuff. But my principles and maxims were based on my goals. If my goals are not there, what principles and maxims do I actually have? And that's part of that identity rebuilding. And that's part of that impulse control. Because once you know what you want, you know what you don't want. So one of the most important things I did is I made a list of things that I was running from, things that I'm currently at, and things that I want to go to. That was super important. My ex-wife shredded those. But I stood up to her on that. I was like, no, these are good goals. And so, yeah, some people are going to be overly negative. Some people are going to put you down. But you can't let that get to you, especially when you're in that cycle of this never-ending loop of pleasure-seeking, consequence, drop, pleasure-seeking. Once you're in that cycle, that hedonistic cycle, it's really hard to get out of. Because your mistake puts you right back in the position of need, and the position of need puts you right back in the seeking of pleasure or the seeking of monetary gain or the seeking of whatever. That's a problem. So you have to almost rewrite your brain on the fly to get yourself to start acting normal. Like who you were before was important. that person is still part of you, even if you're changing. So through integration, I'm really happy about that. But that doesn't mean that integration is the only answer. So denial is something some people do. Drowning yourself in something else. So weightlifting is very common for guys. For girls, I'm not really sure. I'm guessing dancing, maybe partying. And that's not healthy. For a lot of people, religion kind of gets everybody. You know, you kind of deep dive into religion, and somehow you don't have any of these problems anymore, right? Except that you have the problem of the hypocrite, which then you start doing things that are opposite of what you're believing or what you're saying. So it's not as simple as everybody tries to make it out to be. There's a lot of hard choices that have to be made to regain impulse control. All right. I'm going to go about a minute more. Thank you for watching, whoever was watching. I love you all. Hope you have a great night. And I'll see you all the next time we have one of these shows. This was a good one. This was a short one. But I think we did a good job. Here you go. So sorry. Have a good night, everybody. Okay.
Hey man, where'd you go? We used to have fun, hang out and smoke. Watch a little you know what a show. Drink a little bit of this, little that to cope. Yeah, wait, we used to have fun, right? Sleep in short days, but the long nights. You always love to go play, what a fun guy. But now you seem so lame, what a shame, right? Hey, come back, let's get high. We can have another run like the good times. We can have a little fun, just recline, me time. Hit over the wheel, you'll be just fine. Yeah, you know I'm always here for you. Life gets hard, there's a lot of fear for you. You know I can make it all disappear for you. Only one time, you'll be fine, man, I'll cheer for you. No, I don't wanna get back to a place that I really don't like, so I really gotta go. All the thoughts in the back of my mind, they be bigger at night when the dark takes hold. Gotta make my way to the light, feeling better inside every time I say no.